So we have here the long-awaited CleanJuice Air for the Game Boy Color. I know you guys have been dying for this one, but it's finally here. It took a while to get the batteries just right, the board just right, everything just right. I've got one on charge here, and this is going to be a video showing you how to correctly install the CleanJuice Air. So if you have one of our shells, it's basically a drop-in fit. If you have an original, they'll simply be cutting the bottom of the shell to cause a flat bottom. But ideally, we really recommend using our shells. It makes it much easier. I'll go through the steps of installing it, how to test it if you have a multimeter, and the general usage of how you want to charge this, how you want to look after it, and you can see it charging on the wireless stand like now. So let's just jump straight in, and I'm going to show you how to prep this board ready to install. I've just chucked a stock console in here. The screen isn't even aligned. It's simply just to show the console powering up. And you can see in the back of our shells, the base is already flat. So if you use an original, you just need to cut the curved corners so that it's flat. But again, like I say, I'd recommend using our shells. So let's put the shell aside for a minute, and we have the battery and the board. Now, the battery should come with two little double-sided pieces of tape. If it doesn't, for whatever reason, potentially the factory missed it, it should come with tape. But if not, all you need is a little bit of double-sided tape to stick on the edges. It's easy to remove the board once the double-sided tape is on, so don't worry too much about that. That's why the dabs are a little bit small. And first, what we want to do is bend these pins, these battery connection pins, into the right spot. So you can see here, here's the battery, and here's the terminals where the battery connects to the board. So this board gets power by making contact with these terminals here. So if you can see from the side, if you just place it on, it's not going to make contact. It's not touching anything. So the first thing you do is you go this side, so the side with the GBC writing, and if you hold over there, so you're holding over this solder point here to keep it strong, you just want to hold there, and you can do it like that, so you're supporting the board, and just gently bend the pads in like that. So nothing too difficult, just gently bend, just go slow and bend them in, and then that will allow, when it's on the battery, for the connection to make a good connection here. Now the second thing you want when it's in the shell is, because when it sits in the shell, you can see these tabs here. I'll just zoom in and show you. These tabs aren't quite touching the plastic wall at the minute. So the battery will sit in the shell like this. These tabs will make contact with the battery, but on top of that, we want these little springs to really push against this shell to make a really strong contact when there's high current and you're using things like IPS screens. So to assist with that, all you do on this side still, now you've bent the terminals in, you just want to gently bend out the actual flat piece here. So you just want to bend that out a little bit so that this sticks outwards. So if I was to do it to the extreme, it'd be like that. So you see how it's pointing out. You can do this with your hand or you can do it with a tool. They're just soft material. So there's kind of your perfect position for the battery springs. The other side, so once this is connected to the battery, this then outputs to the console. So you've got your negative and your positive. We can see in the battery compartment here, if we were going to install it now, the negative spring here is going to make loads of contact. It pushes on the spring heavily. The positive, however, is recessed into the shell. So you want to make sure this connection is nice and clean for a start. So if we zoom in on this one, for example, there's quite a bit of battery corrosion. So you want to just make sure these, you can either swap these with new springs that we sell, or you can just gently rough them up a bit and get a good connection so that when you're making contact, it's as good as possible. So if you've got a good condition GBC, this won't be an issue. But I've just grabbed one out of the pile and not really checked anything. So give that a bit of a clean, and that'll do for this example. So it could be better, but that should work fine. But as you can see, it's recessed into the shell. So what we want to do with this spring to assist with making sure you've got the best contact, so this top spring, is like the other, but this time support the bridge here where it's soldered so you don't break the board, and just gently bend out like that. And then when this goes in the board, you can see as you push in, it will go inside and it would make nice contact with that spring there. So we see what's going to happen. you would put this board in. For example, this on the battery spring here would make good contact. And as you go in, you're going to make good contact with that terminal like that. So that's the small bends sorted. And I like to leave this up to the user to make sure they understand how this battery connects and understands the reason for the bends, so that when you're working with your shell, instead of it being pre-bent for our shells, you can visibly look at your shell, and if you've got an original or a different third-party one, and for example the connection here is a different depth, you know to simply bend this out more or less. Remember to remove the battery spring here as well on this side, otherwise you'll be shorting the battery out and causing a dead short. So it's important to just remove your battery spring from here. And then the final step is now to just drop it in. So when we install this, you can install it without tape, but because it's going to be under pressure, pushing on both sides of the shell, this board is going to bow upwards. And it would still work, but when it warms up for charging or under more usage and time, this will fracture the joints on the components. So really it's absolutely recommended to stick this down. You don't stick it down until you've seen that you're getting good battery contact here. So with that, once you've got good battery contact, the board kind of just stays in place. It naturally wants to go there. So we can just take off the protective cover on the double-sided tape to expose obviously the sticky side. And remember the RetroSix logo with the CleanJuice logo, so they're aligned, not, for example, this way around. Make sure you install it the correct way, which is this way. So all you want to do is hover the board over and pinch with your fingers, so you're pinching the board even, both sides, and that results in it being nice and even that way. Find the board's central point, so you want to sort of push it even left and right, and stick the board down. And that will allow the board there to make good contact, and when it's pushed in the shell, make even better contact. And also now it keeps this board from bending and bowing, and it adds the protection. If you did want to remove the board, you can either just get tweezers and go between the board here and lift up gently and just go up and down, and you'll see I've put no traces here so it doesn't damage the board. You start this side and just lift up and just go up and down like that, and that's then removed. And then to remove the other side, support the board from the left and right and just gently pry up here as well, like that, and then you've got the board out. Because I want this on the board, obviously I'll just quickly reinstall it, and there we go. So if you're gentle and you take your time, you can replace this battery, for example, pulling it off easily without damaging the board. Just remember this is a thin board and just simply treat it with care and you'll have no issues. So here's now the prepped CleanJuice ready to drop in. And to install it, you want to start by placing it this way. So you can see we're placing it down like this. And that's so this battery terminal goes into the spring like that. And then it's a simple case of just pushing and dropping in. So now it's about to drop in. You can see there. As we push down now, you'll notice these battery terminals, hopefully, touch the shell just about like that. And they add that little bit of extra pressure to keep the battery springs pushed into the battery. And we can check and see here that we have good contact on the battery spring there. And these are gold plated, so these are highly conductive. And just make sure you've got clean terminals. This terminal will never have a problem because you can see it's completely jammed into the spring there. So this one will never be an issue. This one you just want to make sure is bent out plenty so that when it squashes in it makes good contact. And these two you want to see that those metal contacts are just brushing against the shell to push and make contact with the battery. Just set your multimeter into voltage DC mode. And you can see if the board's getting power by connecting over the two battery springs. And you can see we've got 4 volts, so this is a pretty charged battery. And then you can check the output of the CleanJuice is working by flipping the polarity around. and go in here and we have 3.4 volts. So this is fully working, which means we have good power here and good output power. So that means then, when we install the back cover and turn over, this should turn on. And you can see, there you go, a successful boot. And then this brings us on to the charging. So because of the shape of the Game Boy Color, this curve, it's not the ideal shape for a wireless charger. When we bring in a wireless charger and we sit it on this base, for example, it's going to want to sit like this, which is slightly off center. That's sort of center and it's slightly off. So if your wireless charger is good, it won't really complain. You want to position it accurately because that matters. And you can't really see, but there's the charge light in red and it's charging. And the CleanJuice, you can see through the shell. If I can get this in camera, you can see the red light here indicates that we're receiving wireless power, and the orange light here, which looks red on camera, so the bottom light, is the battery actually charging. However, what I find, because this plastic's quite thick, so if we look, that's quite a thick plastic, the wireless coil is already at the limits really of distance. If you want a decent fast charge and maybe your charger isn't as good, I just tend to take the back cover off. You can also rest it there to place it on and sort of give it a better angle. And if you did that, for example, you can see the angle then when it's resting is much flatter. So it kind of acts as a nice little brace. You just take the back cover off, rest it on the surface, place it on, and you get a really good charge, because then the coil is nice and close and flat to the charger. As you've seen, it's not required. You can just simply put it on the charger, and so long as you're accurate in your position, it will charge and there's no problem. Removing the kit is the same. To remove the battery, I recommend lifting from this side first and probably getting a pair of tweezers. The battery is enclosed in hard plastic, so don't worry too much. You shouldn't be able to damage the battery. And you want to just use the blunt side of the tweezers, wedge in the side there, and lift out. This gets it up, and you can then lift up, and it just comes away. So that's probably the recommended way to remove the battery. To reinstall, it's nice and simple again. Just press in, push down, and it's installed. Finally, when charging is complete, if you leave it on long enough and your charger supports it, this light will turn green to indicate that the charge is finished. Charging should take from a completely flat battery with good connection to the charge board around an hour and a half. This all depends on your charger's capabilities to deliver the current, how accurate you've positioned the CleanJuice on the charger, and a few other variables. But in general, between half an hour and 2 hours should be your average for this to be completed. And you can see there, this one's turned green now and it's fully charged. So that's how you install the CleanJuice Air for Game Boy Color. I hope you guys enjoy this product, and as always, let me know if there's anything else you want inventing or creating for retro consoles.